Stop right there. Before you touch another pair of scissors or book another salon appointment, I need you to hear this. There are 3 haircuts that women over 50 are getting right now, thinking they look fresh and modern, that are actually adding years to their face the moment they walk out of the salon chair. And the wild part? 2 of these 3 haircuts are considered classic and safe by most stylists. You have probably seen them recommended 100 times, maybe even in magazines, maybe even by your own hairdresser. But today I am going to show you exactly why they are working against you, and more importantly, I am going to show you the 3 cuts that do the opposite. The ones that soften your features, lift your face, and honestly, make people do a double take when you tell them your age. Stick with me until the end, because haircut number 3 on the avoid list is one almost nobody talks about, and it might just be the one sitting on your own head right now. And by the time we get to the youthful side, I promise you will never look at a hair appointment the same way again. This is not about vanity, and it is not about chasing something that is not there anymore. It is about walking into a room feeling like the very best, most put-together version of yourself, because you deserve that at 50, at 60, and every single year after. Hello beautiful woman, welcome back to Grace Beyond 60, the place where we prove that style, elegance, and confidence do not have an expiration date. If this is your first time here, I am so glad you found us. Go ahead and get comfortable, maybe grab your coffee or tea, because we are about to have one of those conversations you will want to remember next time you are sitting in that salon chair. And to my loyal viewers, my regulars, my Grace family, welcome back. You already know how we do things here, real talk, no fluff, and tips that actually work for real women living real lives, not runway models in their 20s. Before we dive in, if you are new here, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. We post new videos every week helping women over 60 look effortlessly put together without spending a fortune. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. Alright, let us get into it. Now here is something nobody tells you when you turn 50, 60, or beyond. Your face changes. Not just wrinkles, not just gray hair, but the actual shape and structure of your face shifts, quietly, over years, without anyone sitting you down to explain it. Your cheeks lose a little volume. Your jawline softens. Your forehead might look a touch longer than it used to because your hairline naturally moves back a little. And here is the thing, most haircuts were designed without any of that in mind. They were designed for younger faces with tighter skin and fuller cheeks, faces that could handle sharp lines and heavy weight without any consequence. So when you keep the same haircut you had at 35, or worse, when you follow generic advice that does not actually consider what is happening with your face today, you end up fighting against your own features instead of working with them. It is like wearing the same shoe size you wore 20 years ago and wondering why it suddenly pinches. And just like shoes, hair is not something you set once and forget forever. It is something that deserves to be revisited every so often, checked in on, adjusted slightly as your face continues its own natural, graceful evolution. That does not mean constant drastic change, it simply means staying aware, which is exactly what we are doing together right now. So let us talk about the 3 haircuts that are quietly aging you. And I promise you, at least one of these is going to surprise you, because chances are, someone recommended it to you as the safe, foolproof choice. Aging haircut number 1. The blunt heavy bob. The first one is the blunt heavy bob. I know. This one has been called classic and chic for years. And honestly, it can look stunning on the right face. Stylists love recommending it because it is easy to maintain, and it photographs beautifully in the salon mirror. But here is what nobody explains before you sit down in that chair. A blunt bob with a hard, straight line at the bottom creates a heavy visual weight right at your jaw. And when your jawline has softened even slightly, which happens to almost everyone over time, that hard line actually draws attention straight to the area you would probably rather soften, not sharpen. It is like putting a bold frame around the exact spot you did not want highlighted in the first place. Think of it this way. Imagine drawing a straight ruler line right under your chin. That is essentially what a blunt bob does visually. It creates a stopping point that says look here, right at the jaw, instead of letting the eye flow gently down and away toward your collarbone. Women often walk out of the salon loving how sleek and polished it looks in that moment, under those bright salon lights, only to notice weeks later in natural daylight that something feels heavier than expected. That heaviness is not in your imagination. It is the geometry of the cut working against the natural softness of a mature face. It is worth saying too that this does not mean the blunt bob is banned forever. It simply means the classic, sharp version of it deserves a second look before you request it again out of habit. There is also a texture issue that almost nobody mentions. As hair matures, it often becomes finer and slightly more prone to flatness, especially near the roots. A blunt bob relies on thickness and density to hold its sharp shape properly. When the hair underneath has thinned even slightly, that same blunt line that once looked sleek and intentional can start to look stringy or flat by midday, which then creates the illusion of even less volume than you actually have. So the very cut chosen to look neat and put together can end up looking tired by the afternoon. Through no fault of your own. Aging haircut number 2. The overlayered shag. The second one might genuinely shock you, because it is often marketed as the youthful, edgy choice. The overly layered shag, the kind with tons of choppy, feathered layers all over, especially piled up around the crown. Here is the problem nobody warns you about. When you add too many layers, especially short, choppy ones around the crown and top of the head, it can actually thin out the appearance of your hair rather than add the volume it promises. And thinning hair at the crown, even the illusion of it, is one of the biggest visual age markers there is, more than wrinkles, more than gray hair. So a haircut that is supposed to look edgy and fresh can end up doing the exact opposite, making your hair look sparse and your scalp more visible than you would ever want. Many women choose this style specifically because they were told it would look youthful and full of movement, which makes the disappointment even harder when the mirror tells a different story. There is a version of this that can absolutely work beautifully, but it requires very intentional placement, longer layers concentrated lower down rather than short choppy ones stacked at the crown. And honestly, that distinction is often lost in translation at the salon unless you know to ask for it specifically. Most stylists will simply hear the word shag and reach straight for the razor near the crown out of habit, because that is how the style has traditionally been taught and executed for decades. Aging haircut number 3. The all one length long style. And now, the one almost nobody talks about, the third haircut that quietly ages you. Long hair, all one length, with little to no layering or face framing whatsoever. Now, I want to be very clear here. Long hair is beautiful at any age. There is absolutely no rule that says you have to cut it short once you hit a certain birthday. That is an outdated idea, and we are not here for outdated ideas. But keeping it at one uniform length, especially when it falls past the shoulders with zero movement around the face, pulls all the visual weight straight downward. It drags the whole face down along with it, like gravity working overtime. Combined with even slight volume loss around the cheeks, which again happens naturally to most of us. This style can make the face look longer and more tired than it actually is, even on days when you feel completely fine. What makes this one especially tricky is that it often gets praised the most in casual conversation. Friends and family will say things like your hair looks so healthy and long. Because length by itself does read as healthy to the untrained eye. But healthy and youthful are not always the same thing. Hair can be perfectly healthy, shiny, and strong while still being cut in a way that drags the whole face downward. That is the frustrating part. The compliments you receive about the health of your hair can actually distract you from noticing that the shape itself is quietly working against your features every single day. Now here is something worth mentioning before we move on. None of these 3 cuts are mistakes because a stylist did a bad job. Most of the time, the cut itself was executed perfectly. The problem is almost always in the request. Women walk in and say things like just trim it the same as last time, or give me something classic and easy, and the stylist simply repeats whatever was done 5, or even 10 years ago without factoring in the small, gradual changes that have happened since. Your stylist is not a mind reader. If you do not specifically ask for softness, movement, and face framing, you will likely get exactly what you have always gotten, even if what you have always gotten is quietly working against you now. I have heard from so many women in this community over the years who describe the exact same pattern. They find a haircut they like in their 40s, it works beautifully, they get compliments, and so they hold on to that same request for the next 15 or 20 years because it once felt like a safe formula. But our faces are not static. They shift gradually, so gradually that we rarely notice it happening in the mirror day to day. The same way you do not notice a candle slowly burning down while you are sitting in the room with it. Then one day, almost out of nowhere, a photograph or a video call catches us at an angle we are not used to. And suddenly the softness we have been missing becomes obvious. That is not a flaw in you. That is simply time doing what time does. The solution is not panic, it is a small, informed adjustment, which is exactly what the rest of this video is going to give you. And honestly, once you know what to ask for, this becomes one of the easiest changes you will ever make, far easier than a new skincare routine or a new wardrobe, because it takes just one appointment and the results show up instantly, the very moment you look in the mirror. Okay, pause with me for 1 second. If you are realizing right now that your current haircut might be one of these three, please do not panic. I am not saying rush out today and chop your hair off in a frenzy. I am saying stick with me, because we are about to flip the script completely, and I promise the fix is simpler than you think. Before we get there though, if this is helping you see your hair in a completely new way, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more women, just like you, who are searching for real answers instead of generic advice. And I would love to know in the comments, which one of these three surprised you the most? Was it the bob, the shag, or the long one-length style? Drop it below. I read every single comment personally. And if you have not yet, go ahead and subscribe, because what I am about to show you next might be the most useful part of this entire video. Alright, let us get into the 3 haircuts that do the exact opposite of everything we just discussed. The ones that lift, soften, and genuinely take years off your face, without requiring a single trip to a cosmetic clinic. And as we go through each one, I want you to really picture it on your own face, not on some model in a magazine, because the whole point of this video is helping you see yourself, not someone else entirely. Youthful haircut number 1. The soft rounded lob. First up, the soft rounded lob. This is different from that blunt bob we just talked about, so do not confuse the two. Instead of a hard, straight line, this version has rounded, softened edges, usually landing somewhere between the chin and the collarbone. That gentle curve does something quietly powerful. It echoes the natural curve of a youthful jawline, tricking the eye into perceiving more softness and lift than is technically there. It is a small tweak with a massive visual payoff. When you sit down for this one, ask your stylist specifically for rounded ends, not blunt ends, and request that the length hits somewhere around your collarbone rather than sharply at the jaw. That single request changes everything about how the cut behaves on your face. Another small trick worth mentioning: ask for the ends to be point cut rather than cut straight across with the scissors held flat. Point cutting removes tiny bits of bulk from the very ends of the hair, which naturally softens that line even further without you having to sacrifice any actual length. Most stylists know this technique well, but they will not always use it unless you ask, simply because a standard blunt cut is faster to execute during a busy salon day. Youthful haircut number 2. Long, soft face framing layers. Second, long layers that are strategically placed around the face, not scattered everywhere in a chaotic pattern. This is completely different from that choppy shag disaster we mentioned earlier. Here, the layers are longer, softer, and concentrated specifically around the cheeks and jawline rather than piled up at the crown. What this does is create gentle movement exactly where your face needs a lift, drawing the eye upward and outward toward your eyes instead of downward toward your jaw or neck. It is subtle, but it is one of those changes people notice without being able to say exactly why you suddenly look so refreshed and rested. When you ask for this at the salon, describe it as face framing layers rather than just layers, because that specific language tells your stylist exactly where to concentrate the work. It also helps to bring a reference photo, not necessarily of your exact desired outcome, but specifically showing where the layers begin and end on the face, since verbal descriptions of hair length can mean very different things to different people. A stylist's idea of chin length layers and yours might be surprisingly far apart, so a simple photo saves you from any unwanted surprises after the cutting has already begun. Youthful haircut number 3. The underrated curtain bang. And finally, the one almost nobody over 60 even attempts, because they assume bangs are simply too young or too high maintenance for them. The soft curtain bang. Not a blunt, heavy fringe cut straight across, but a soft parted, face-hugging curtain style that blends gently into the rest of your hair rather than standing apart from it. This one is genuinely incredible because it can instantly minimize the appearance of a longer forehead, soften strong lines around the eyes and brow, and create a natural frame that makes your entire face look brighter, softer, and more lifted, almost like a subtle filter you get to wear all day long. It sounds bold on paper, I know, but done softly and blended correctly, it becomes one of the most age-defying choices you can make in that chair. And the maintenance is far easier than people assume. A quick trim every few weeks keeps it perfectly shaped, and on lazy days you can simply tuck it to the side. If the idea of committing to a fringe still feels a little scary, know that curtain bangs are one of the most forgiving styles to grow out as well, since the soft parted shape blends naturally into longer layers during the growing out phase rather than looking awkward or unfinished the way a blunt fringe often does. So even trying it comes with very little risk. I actually want to share something with you here, because a viewer of this channel, a wonderful woman named Diane, sent me a message a few months ago after trying almost this exact combination. She had been wearing the same one-length-long style for over a decade because it felt safe and familiar. She was terrified that changing it would make her look like she was trying too hard, which is a fear so many of us carry. She finally asked her stylist for soft layers and a gentle curtain fringe, nothing dramatic, nothing drastic. And she told me that at her next family gathering, her own daughter-in-law asked what she had done differently, because she looked so rested and bright. That is the power of working with your face instead of against it. It is rarely about a dramatic transformation. It is almost always about small, intentional adjustments. Now, a quick word of caution before you rush off to book your appointment. These 3 cuts work best when they are not overdone. A rounded lob can still look heavy if it is cut too thick without any internal layering, so ask your stylist to thin it slightly at the ends. Face framing layers can look chaotic instead of soft if there are too many of them crammed too close together, so fewer, longer layers almost always outperform many short choppy ones. And a curtain bang can start to look like a solid blunt fringe if it is cut too straight across, so always ask for it to be point cut or feathered at the ends rather than blunt cut. These tiny details are the difference between a cut that ages you gracefully backward, and one that simply looks like an attempt at something new. It also helps to think about your natural face shape when choosing between these 3. Though honestly, all 3 tend to flatter most mature faces because they are built around softness rather than sharp geometry. If your face is rounder, the rounded lob paired with face framing layers creates gentle length without adding bulk. If your face is longer, the curtain bang is often the single most transformative choice because it visually shortens the forehead area. And if you already have some natural waviness or texture, gentle face framing layers will bring that texture to life in ways a blunt cut simply cannot, since movement and texture were never designed to be squeezed into rigid, straight lines in the first place. I also want to gently remind you, whichever of these 3 you decide to try, give yourself a few days to adjust before deciding whether you love it. New haircuts almost always feel unfamiliar for the first week, simply because you are so used to seeing a different reflection looking back at you. That unfamiliar feeling is not the same thing as it looking wrong. It usually just means your brain needs a little time to catch up with the mirror. So here is your real takeaway today, and I want you to really sit with this one. It was never really about your age at all. It was about working with the natural changes happening in your face, rather than fighting against them like they are the enemy. A blunt bob, an overlayered shag, or a long one-length style are not inherently bad haircuts. They are simply haircuts that need to be softened and thoughtfully adjusted for where your face is right now.